Hey everybody, it is day 13 of Vlogmas. We're over the hump. There are what? el- I was going to do the math. 11, 12 days left in Vlogmas, starting December 1st all the way through December 25th. I am going live here on my YouTube channel at 2 p.m. Eastern every day, doing a short video in honor of Vlogmas. Thank you to the folks who are here in the chat live. And thank you to the folks who are watching this in the future by watching the replay. I appreciate you all being here. And yeah, okay. So today we are continuing our theme of money. The first week of Vlogmas, we talked about moving abroad. Second week, this week, we have focused on money. And today we're going to talk a little bit about retirement, although I really wish we would reframe that. And instead of thinking about, like, oh, I have to have money to retire, because I think in our minds, retirement is something that happens very far away. That is something that happens when we are older. And that doesn't have to be the case. Really, what it means to get to retirement age, or this is what I want us to rethink. I think currently, when we think about retirement age, we think about the point at which we don't want to work anymore, and that's generally due to age. I would much rather if we kind of framed it more as when financial independence, financial freedom, when do we get to a point where we don't have to work anymore? Not like I don't want to work anymore because I'm old and I'm tired. It is like I have earned enough, I have saved, I have invested, and I am done. That could be in your 30s, that could be in your 40s, that could be in your 50s. I really wish we would reframe this. And it might be too late for folks my age and older, but definitely with younger people, this idea that we should expect to work 30, 40 years. That's not a rule. That's not written anywhere, although we have all behaved like it is. You know, we only have to work as long as we want to, and we just have to put things in place to have the money so that we can uh stop working when we are done, not when the system is done with us. um I am really hoping, I'm glad you mentioned this. I am really hoping to hit that 20,000 subscribers before the month is over. So if you are new here, or if you're somebody who has been watching my videos, but you're not subscribed, it's just you are living at the whims of the algorithm, it would be awesome if you could go ahead and hit the subscribe button and let YouTube know, like, yeah, I like her stuff. I want to get more of it. Um, if you are new here, you probably have no idea who I am. My name is Adelia Aborishade. Um, there's so much I could tell you about me, but the important part is the reason this YouTube channel exists is because I want people to know that there is another way to live, a different way to live, particularly Black women. I go hard for them. And so I am one of the people who is living their life in a different way. And I share that on this channel. I talk about my life living outside the US for the last 7 years. I talk about my travels. I think I have been to 50 countries at this point. I can't remember if Argentina was 49 or 50. Um, but I am an avid solo traveler. I am also a financial educator who really believes that we could all, take control of our money and use it as a tool to live the life that we want. Um, so that's who I am. That's what we do here. And like I said, if you want more of that kind of good stuff, make sure you hit the subscribe button. Thank you, Word Up Psychotherapy, for the super chat. Appreciate it. Uh, very sweet, your comment. I see that. What does Denise say? My mother said to me yesterday, "You have 17 more years to work." I said, "Nope, I will be out by 60. I'm currently 48." Yeah, I really want us to rethink and reframe how we look at work, how long we're supposed to work, the purpose of work, as well as retirement. Because this idea that the life we want has to wait until there's some time in the future, I reject that. I don't like that. All right. So yesterday, we talked about like brokerage accounts, investment accounts. I've gotten multiple questions about that. And there were a couple of people who wanted to talk about like IRAs, Roth IRAs, that kind of stuff. And I didn't want to have that conversation there, but I think those of you that had some questions about those things that will fit with today's conversation, which is connected to retirement. Um, I hope we all hope to stop working at some point. So I think one of the speed bumps, one of the hurdles we often face when thinking about that is, well, how is that going to work? If I don't have a job, if I'm not working, how am I going to live? So I wanted to talk about like, okay, if you're going to stop working, you're going to retire, whether that's at 35, 45, 65, doesn't matter the age, a lot of it is all the same, no matter the age at with which you do it, is where is that money supposed to come from? How is that supposed to work? And I think the first thing to think about is when we talk about retirement, regardless of the age you are, we need to think about, okay, the money that you're supposed to have, what is that money supposed to cover? Because that directly informs how much money you need. Okay. So, yeah, there's the basics like food, shelter, housing, um, you know, medical. Think about all of the expenses you have in your life now. Do you anticipate having those same expenses once you're not working anymore? And I know those of you who have chosen to own homes, a lot of the goal is to have the house paid off. That way, in retirement, you don't have a big house note. Although you'll still have housing costs, you'll still have uh, insurance, you'll still have property taxes, you'll still have to make repairs. So your housing costs don't go away. Hopefully, the amount you have to spend on them is less, but they don't go away. Um, so housing, food. Uh, do you travel now? Do you want to travel when you don't work anymore and you have more time? Okay. Or does your version of retirement, it's like, I just hang at the house. I just chill. If that's the case, that's great for you. That means your retirement is going to be less expensive. But if a lot of the things that you do currently in your life, you intend to do those after you retire, you're going to need to make sure that there is money to fund those things. So a lot of people hope to travel once they don't have a job getting in the way. That costs money. Whatever it is you do for fun, your hobbies, you wanna go out to have lunch, you wanna be like Khaleesi and Rick and going out for sangria and wine and sitting on balconies in Lisbon, so like all of that has a price to it. Okay. um Medical, healthcare, when you're working, particularly in the United States, you probably, hopefully, have a job that includes that. Well, when you stop working, whether you do that in your 30s or in your 60s, you do need to think about, okay, so how am I going to pay for that? Is that going to be something like Medicare? Are you going to get private insurance? Like this is part of when we think about having that chunk of money somewhere that's supposed to help us fund our retirement. These are the things that go into that. Also, probably long-term care. Now, if you stop working in your 30s, you're probably not going to need long-term care or need to think about that for a while. But if you're stopping to work in your 60s and you're expecting to live another 30 years, that may be a concern. Um, and long-term care insurance may be something that you want to look at because paying for senior care out of pocket. Y'all think healthcare and insurance is expensive? You just don't even know. And then you need to also think about inflation. I think a lot of times people forget about inflation. They think about like, oh, I've got this amount of money. This is what stuff costs. And they assume it's going to continue to cost that always. And if history has showed us anything, that is not the case, especially the past couple of years where we got a close up look at what inflation can do to the money we have. So, those are all the things that your pot of money for retirement are going to need to cover. There's probably some other stuff in there too, but those are the big things. Now, where is that money going to come from? This is where it gets tricky. Um, Depending on your age and the kind of industry you worked in, you might be one of the lucky folks who still has a pension. If you are, count your blessings. Because pensions are endangered. They are virtually non-existent in the way they used to be. And I think this is part of where we struggle because a lot of us, like people my age, grew up thinking like you get a job, you work there 30 years, you retire with a pension. Except that in at least in my lifetime, being uh, that stopped being possible. Now, for millennials and Gen Z, they they grew up in a very different world, so they are probably never expecting those things at all. But if you're my age or a little older, you probably thought that was going to be a thing, only to have your feelings hurt and find out like, no, that's not going to be around for us. Okay. What about Social Security? If you have worked, and the vast majority of Americans who work traditional 9 to 5 jobs uh, have contributed into Social Security. We've talked here before that there are people like me who worked in public education who did not contribute to Social Security. And so part of where this money could come from, particularly if you work in an industry in a field where there is no pension, is Social Security. Um, the question is, how much are you actually going to get? I know there's always talk about will Social Security be around for me? I think Social Security will continue to exist. I think the bigger question is the benefits we've been promised, are we actually going to get those? And if we look at the current landscape, because a lot of people have a misunderstanding about Social Security, they're like, hey, that gets taken out of my check. That money is going into a little account for me. And then when I retire, they just parcel that money back out to me. And that is not how it works. Social Security is funded by current working people. And with baby boomers, they're demographically speaking, they are going to be the largest. They're like, we've not had a group of people, a generation this big before. They're all starting to hit retirement age. So there's going to be a whole lot more people who need their benefits paid then there are people paying into the system who are working. When I used to teach geography, we talked about there are two kinds of people in any country. There are workers and there are shirkers. The workers are the people who are working and paying taxes and contributing to the various social programs. Then there are the shirkers. Those are the young people and the old people. And we, the United States, along with many other countries, are in a position right now where there are going to be far more shirkers than there are workers. So I think the latest estimate is that by 2034, 2035, Social Security will only have enough money to pay about 75% of the benefits that they have promised. So that's what I mean. Like, I think Social Security will continue to exist. I just don't think that the money we expect to get from it, we will actually get unless something drastically changes in the political landscape in the United States. And so far, I have not seen that happen. Yeah. This is at least for the graph I looked at showed for about from about 2034, 2035, for about like the next 10 years after that, it's going to be somewhere between a 20-30% drop. How much further out from that will those benefits, the amounts continue to drop? I don't know. But I'm really hoping something happens because while I'm not entitled to any Social Security of my own, I am entitled to some from that man I used to be married to, and I would like to get all of that. I did my time. I would like to collect my money. Um, so yes, that is sobering, but I think it's an important thing to know when you're doing your planning. Okay, so maybe you got a pension, probably you don't. Maybe you're supposed to be getting some Social Security. Right now, I think the safe bet would be to just go ahead and assume you're going to get somewhere between 70-75% of what you think you're supposed to get. So, where else is this money supposed to come from? Well, some of you probably worked at jobs that had employer sponsored uh, retirement programs, things like 401ks, or if you're in the nonprofit sector, it might be a 403b. If you worked in the public sector, it's probably a 457 plan. And those are ways for you personally to save money for retirement uh, through your employer. Ideally, your employer um, would be contributing, like they would give you some money, like they would match what you would contribute. Again, as a public school teacher, I was never fortunate enough to have one of those kind of jobs. So my retirement savings pretty much have all been self-funded. So if you work someplace that does have one of those, a 457, a 403b, or a 401k, look into it, at least find out if there is an employer match, because that is free money. And we all want to stop working at some point. So why would we turn down free money from somebody? Okay. If you were like me and you never worked at a place that had any kind of employer sponsored plan, you could do what is called an individual retirement account. Somebody asked about this yesterday, an IRA, like a Roth IRA, something like that. That allows you to save. Starting in 2024, it is going to be $7,000 each year. You can put that aside. It grows. If it's a Roth IRA, tax free, so that when you are retired, you could have invested that money and grown it, and then you can use that to fund your retirement. If you're using like a tax deferred program through your employer, like a 401k, I believe the new number is going to be $23,000 that you can set aside, plus whatever your employer matches on top of that. So that's one place where the money could come from. Um, You could put money in a high yield savings account right now. High yield savings accounts are paying around 5% interest, but y'all remember just a few years ago, they weren't even paying 1%. So I said this yesterday. I will say it again today. You can't save your way to financial independence. Just saying like, oh, I don't want to deal with the risk in the stock market. I'm just going to put my money in this account and it's going to grow. First of all, interest rates fluctuate, but you know what else fluctuates? Inflation. And whatever you're doing, you want the money that's going to supposed to do all this stuff for you in retirement, you need it to beat inflation. Okay. So we talked yesterday about brokerage accounts. Those can that your brokerage account can be used to fund whatever you want. You want a BBL, you want to get married, you want to buy a house, you want to pay for retirement. The money you put in there and you invest it, you can use it for whatever. So that means you can use it for your retirement as well. Maybe you own a property or two and you want to rent those out to pay you an income so that when you are no longer working, you have that. Okay. There are many ways that you could invest, but ultimately, the money that's going to fund all those things we said you need for retirement, you're going to need multiple streams, just like in life. Stephanie, I saw Stephanie Perry in the chat. Stephanie talks about having rivers of income, not just streams of income, rivers of income. It's the same thing when you're retired. The money that's going to fund your retirement shouldn't come from one place. It should come from multiple streams, multiple rivers. And so that's there's multiple things that we're trying to do in anticipation of this point where you're not going to work anymore. You need to figure out like what are the things I'm going to do in my retirement? How much is that going to cost me? All right, so what are the different streams I can use to fund that? Okay, Pisces Pratt, I'm glad you asked this because this was one of the questions I wanted to answer and I hadn't got to yet. All right. So you had a 401k or 403b or 457 at another employer and you leave. This isn't your question, but this is a related question. What do? You've got three options. You can leave it where it is. I don't always think that's the best idea. You can roll it over to your new employer's plan, or you can roll it over to an IRA. And the other question I got asked was about taxes. So let's talk about that for a second. And again, y'all know I am not a tax professional. But I did a video. That's what I'm trying to find the link for about like if you have an old 401k, what do you do with it? How much is that going to cost? And I'm grabbing the link to that right now. Old 401k. Watch this video. It's pretty short. I dropped it in the chat and I will put it in the description. Um, so, all right. So you don't always have to roll it into an IRA. And in that video, I talk about why you would or why you wouldn't. But let's talk about taxes because both of the questions I've gotten are about taxes. If you do it right, there are no taxes involved. So you have 401k that was pre-tax money and you want to roll it over into an IRA, a traditional IRA, which would be pre-tax money. Moving it from wherever your company had it to your new Fidelity, Vanguard, Charles Schwab, Ally account, whatever, that does not involve taxes unless you let them give you the money to make the deposit. Don't do that. It should go from one institution directly to the other. This is why if you need to do a rollover, Capitalize, and I have an affiliate link for them. They will take care of everything. Even if you have an old IRA, I mean, an old 401k, and you're not even sure where it is, they will find it for you, and they will move it over for you, and they'll take care of all that. But like, if you know where it is, tell your new brokerage company, Vanguard, like, hey, I got this old 401k, I want to move it over here. They will walk you through it so that it goes from one place directly to another. Where people mess up, and you hear about people having to pay taxes and penalty, they either withdraw everything from the 401k, and Uncle Sam considers that to be a disbursement and a taxable event. That's mistake number one. Or they say, okay, I'm going to roll it over. The old company says, well, here's a check, and they hand that check to them. Even if you don't cash the check, the fact that the check got into your hot little hands, Uncle Sam says, oh, that's a disbursement. You owe us taxes. And if you're under 59 and a half, you owe us penalties on top of it. So if you do it right, it is not a taxable event. And I'll make sure to drop my link for Capitalize in there too, in case there is somebody who needs that service. Okay. Yeah. Oh yeah, there's and this is not just an issue in the US. This is an issue a lot of places. The pandemic kind of like nudged a lot of folks over the edge where they're opting not to put that money to the side for retirement, or they're dipping into that money that was set aside for retirement. And, if you can avoid doing that, that's what, you should do. But if this is down to like we cannot eat, we will not have a place to live, then yeah, dip into that money. But just know future you is gonna have to pay for that. Somebody's gonna have to pay for that. Everything has a cost associated with it. Okay. So we talked about what are the things, the expenses that you're gonna have in your retirement. We talked about where the money is supposed to come from. All right. So the next big question is, all right, so when can I retire? I'm tired of this job. I don't want to do this anymore. How long is it going to take for me to have enough money to stop working? Whether, again, this is in your 20s, your 30s, your 40s, your 50s, whatever. The same issues pop up. Um, it really depends. That's the answer to this question. What's your current spending like? Is your current financial situation one in which you are spending in such a way that there is no money to put toward the goal of not working at this job anymore? um the way you spend today impacts future you. I know that's kind of a downer, but it's the truth. Something else that's going to determine how soon you can stop working is your savings rate. I did a video on that. Especially the folks who want to stop working at an early age. You want to do fire, you want to retire early. This is why when you dig into the fire movement, you read some of these people's blogs, and they talk about like Paula Pant. uh you know the very first house they bought, her and her husband, was a multi-unit. I think it was a threeplex. It was either a threeplex or a fourplex, and they lived in one part of it to keep their expenses down and rented out the other ones. Like, people do what some people might consider extreme things to lower their spending now so they can increase their savings rate. But by doing that now for a short period, that means they get to stop working sooner. It is perfectly okay to be somebody who says, um, you know what? I want to enjoy this life right now. Just know if you spend money that way now, it's going to take you longer to get enough money so that you can stop working. One is not good, one is not bad, one isn't right, one isn't wrong. You just have to make the choices that align with what's important to you. All right. The other thing that is going to determine how long it's going to take you to save up the money is your future expenses. If you have this vision of your retirement where you are balling out, you are on a yacht, you are at the Louis Vuitton store, like you are indulging in consumerism at its highest, that is great. But that just means you will need more money in your retirement. And so either it's going to take you longer to save to get there, save and invest to get there, or you're going to have to up your savings rate if you don't want that to change. The other thing, and will it let me show you? The other thing that's going to determine uh, when you can retire is going to be where you retire. That is the other. I'm trying to figure out uh, where you retire. And I had this little graphic, and now I'm trying to think of where is it? I just saw it. I have too many tabs open on my computer. That's really what's going on. Okay, so it's not here. Sorry, y'all. I have confused myself, but basically, I can't find it now. Where you retire is going to make a difference. Whether that means you retire and leave the US and you go someplace with a lower cost of living, or that means you pick a part of the United States where the cost of living is lower. Um, if you want to retire to California, your money is not going to last as long. It's not going to go as far. So you need to have more money set aside. If you can get down with living in Iowa, the cost of living is probably going to be a lot lower. So those are the things: what your savings rate is, what your future expenses are, what your current expenses are, and where you choose to retire. Those are all going to impact um, when you can retire. All right. All right. I'm just seeing if there are questions in here, and I don't see any. Okay. So this is one of the things we're going to talk about in the workshop that I'm doing next Monday. When is the 18th? Yes, next Monday, the Do the Math workshop. If this is something of particular interest to you, you might want to come and hang out with us while we work on that. I answered that question. I think we've answered the questions I see here in the chat. So that's all I got for today, y'all. I will be back here tomorrow again at 2 p.m. Eastern for the 14th day of Vlogmas. Can't believe it. We're still here. We're still here. Thank y'all again for coming to hang out with me. And I will add those two links to the description.